The Russian army knew about the Ukrainian strike a month in advance, a sudden counterattack on the advancing group's rear. Hello friends, today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine as of January 6, 2024. Before we begin, I would sincerely like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps support its growth. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Of course, the most significant and interesting news today comes from the Sudzhan direction, where for the second day in a row, the Ukrainian armed forces are attempting to advance toward a settlement called Bolshoye Soldatskoye. According to objective control footage, the Ukrainian armed forces have failed to expand their control in the areas near the settlements of Berdyn and Novosotnitsky over the past 24 hours. Moreover, the latest attack by the Ukrainian Armed Forces, UAF, was repelled, causing significant losses. At present, they are regrouping to resume combat operations. This is a brief overview of what has happened in the past 24 hours. Now let's dive into the details, which are numerous and quite intriguing. Several key aspects of this offensive deserve close attention. Key observations. 1. Simultaneous Russian offensive. While the UAF advanced toward Bolshoye Soldatskoye, the Russian Federation also conducted offensives toward the settlements of Viktorovka, Leonidovo, and Alexandria. Additionally, assault operations were carried out in the southern part of the Sudzhan salient. Ukrainian sources have released footage showing how Russian troops conducted their assaults. In one instance, Russian vehicles were seen hitting minefields set up by Ukrainian forces near Viktorovka. The geolocation of this footage confirms it was filmed in that area. Second, minefield absence in key Ukrainian advances. Video evidence shows that Ukrainian formations advancing toward Berdyn and Novosotnitsky did not encounter any minefields. This absence of obstacles seems intentional and might have served a specific purpose. A possible explanation is that the Russian army may have cleared the minefields weeks earlier when advancing toward settlements like Martinovka, Cherkaskoye, and Ruskoye Porichnoye. Third, lack of FPV drone strikes. No videos have surfaced showing FPV drone strikes on the advancing Ukrainian formations near Bolshoye Soldatskoye. Instead, fiber optic drones were used in some cases. Whether they managed to damage Ukrainian tanks remains unclear. Fourth, insights from Ukrainian cartographers. The pro-Ukrainian mapping service Deep State published an analysis of the situation on the Sudzhan salient. They highlighted one of the strongest Russian offensives in recent times, particularly near Malaya Lochnya and Makhnovka. 5. Early intelligence on Ukrainian offensive. A noteworthy claim is that 3 days before the Ukrainian offensive toward Berdyn and Novosotnitsky, Ukrainian blogger Shari revealed its exact timing, direction, and objectives. This raises the question, if this information was publicly available, Russian intelligence must have been aware of it well in advance and prepared accordingly. 6. On-the-ground reports. Video footage from today shows a young Russian officer explaining how the attack by the Ukrainian army was repelled. In the background, footage of advancing Ukrainian columns is visible. This video was released just hours after the events. Summary: the developments over the past 24 hours indicate intense combat activity in the Sudzhan sector. Both sides are making moves, with the Ukrainian armed forces attempting advances and the Russian army conducting counterattacks and offensives. The situation remains fluid, with numerous tactical nuances that could shape future outcomes. I noticed something interesting. During the Ukrainian offensive, which was announced by Syrskyi and is currently underway, journalists from a state-owned news company were already at the Russian command headquarters filming live footage of how the Russian side was repelling the offensive. This makes it clear that the attack was not unexpected. This small detail, journalists being at the headquarters and recording during the offensive, indicates that the Russian side was aware of the planned Ukrainian offensive well in advance. Today, numerous channels reported that all communications, including internet and radio signals, were being jammed during the offensive. This made it impossible to operate FPV drones on radio frequencies. The only drones that managed to bypass the jamming were fiber optic drones, which were used extensively, with many strikes recorded. In addition to drones, the Russian Federation deployed another interesting branch of the military to repel the offensive. To address the possibility of disrupted drone operations due to Ukrainian jamming, the Russian army positioned a squadron of Ka-52 helicopters near the potential breakthrough line. These helicopters were instrumental in destroying Ukrainian equipment. The North Group of Forces published footage today showing missile strikes by Ka-52 helicopters targeting Ukrainian equipment. During the first day of the offensive, Ukrainian forces managed to advance into the northern part of Berdyan, bypass a reservoir, and possibly reach the western outskirts of Novosotnitsky. This information was primarily based on footage published by RIA Novosti. Developments on the Russian side. According to an official report from the North Group for January 5th, when Ukrainian forces were advancing toward Bolshoye Soldatskoye, the Russian army managed to take full control of the settlement of Leonidovo. A significant number of Ukrainian objective control videos showed Russian assault operations near Viktorovka. As seen in earlier footage, Russian vehicles hit Ukrainian minefields in the area. However, it remains unclear whether Russian forces managed to reach Viktorovka or if the offensive was halted, forcing them to retreat to the forested area. At present, Russian forces appear to have shifted focus toward completing their assault on Alexandria. There are also reports that Russian forces successfully cleared and gained full control of the settlement of Makhnovka. Pro-Russian bloggers claim that Dmitrikov has also been fully cleared and is now under Russian control. Current actions against Ukrainian reserves. Russian forces are now targeting Ukrainian reserves concentrated near the front line in the Sudza area, particularly along Stroitelnaya Street. These reserves are being prepared for deployment toward Bolshoye Soldatskoye. Drone footage shows Russian UAVs striking forward Ukrainian positions. Notably, for the first time, a FAB-3000 bomb was used in the Sudza area, targeting an industrial complex likely housing Ukrainian equipment and formations intended for use near Bolshoye Soldatskoye. The strikes are aimed at disrupting the pace of the Ukrainian offensive and potentially transitioning to a counteroffensive by Russian forces. Broader context. The coming days are expected to be significant. The Ramstein meeting will take place soon, where Zelensky is likely to receive promises of financial and military support. Additionally, the inauguration of Donald Trump is approaching, which may prompt further waves of offensives. Another strike could occur near the Sudzhan salient or along a different axis. Kupiansk direction. Moving to the north in the Kupiansk sector, Russian forces have expanded their control around the Panyanskoye forestry area. Comparing maps from January 5th and January 6th, Russian formations have taken control of farms and forested areas. The settlement of Zapadnoy is gradually being encircled, and assault operations on the settlement itself may begin soon. Further south, footage shows a missile strike destroying a crossing near Kupiansk-Uzlovaya. The destruction of this crossing temporarily disrupted Ukrainian logistical capabilities in the southern Kupiansk direction. Today, Russian forces released footage of combat operations in the settlement of Ivanovka, as well as video of raising the Russian flag there. A few days ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported the clearance and full control of this settlement, but without any objective control footage. Over the past days, the Ukrainian army repeatedly attempted counterattacks in this area to dislodge Russian troops from the banks of the Jerebets River. However, all Ukrainian attacks were repelled. Russian troops managed to secure their positions in Ivanovka, and in the latest footage, we see Russian soldiers clearing the settlement and raising the Russian flag. Chasov Yar and Toretsk directions. Next, we move to the Chasov Yar and Toretsk directions, where significant updates have been reported. Starting with Chasov Yar, there are numerous geolocations and icons marking key developments. The most critical update is that Russian forces have successfully cleared the 10th district neighborhood. According to various mapping services, Russian troops also crossed the railway line and secured a complex near Privokzelnaya Street, south of the railway. Effectively, all supply routes leading from the northwest to the refractory plant and the Ukrainian citadel have been severed. Now the only remaining supply route for the Ukrainian garrison runs through the southern districts of Chasov Yar, making it the sole viable line for resupply. Alehim As at Pokrovsk direction. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russian army is gradually aligning the front line. Today, most combat activity was concentrated around the settlement of Zelenaya. Various mapping services now show the area leaning in favor of Russian forces. Only a few dozen buildings along Sadovaya Street remain under Ukrainian control, and the entire settlement of Zelenaya is expected to fall under Russian control shortly. Additionally, reports indicate that Russian forces from the village of Vovka are attempting to storm the settlement of Zverovaya. Mapping services have begun to mark parts of Zverovaya as contested, with some sources stating that fighting is already ongoing within the settlement. Other reports suggest that Peshanoy is now in a grey zone, or that Ukrainian forces have withdrawn entirely. It is expected that the village will be fully cleared in the coming days. There is also objective control footage from the Ukrainian side showing FPV drone strikes against Russian assault units in forested areas near Zverovaya. Despite these countermeasures, Russian advances are gradually gaining momentum, and it is likely that by January 20th, Russian forces will fully enter the Pokrovsk urban agglomeration.